Medieval castles were not abandoned stone shells. They were active, maintained, and heavily staffed. Whitewashed walls made them visible from a distance and shielded the stone from weather. Interiors had wall paintings, carved wood furniture, and woven rugs. Large sites like Windsor Castle in the 14th century employed more than 100 workers. Edinburgh Castle in the 15th century hosted markets, royal ceremonies, and military musters. Castles remained in use until the early 1500s, when artillery reduced their defensive value and nobles moved into manors or newer fortresses. Once abandoned, upkeep stopped. Most ruins seen today are the result of centuries of exposure after their use ended, not neglect during the medieval period. Medieval Europe was not a single Catholic bloc. Pagan belief systems remained dominant in parts of Scandinavia, the Baltic region, and Eastern Europe for centuries. Lithuania did not officially convert until 1387, and parts of Finland and Estonia held to older traditions well into the 15th century. Under Moorish control from 711 to 1492, Spain maintained large Muslim populations, as did southern Italy after the Norman conquest. Jewish communities were established across major trade cities such as Speyer, Mainz, and Toledo, contributing to commerce, medicine, and scholarship. Alternative Christian movements also held influence, the Cathars in 12th and 13th century France, and the Hussites in 15th century Bohemia, both directly challenging papal authority. Uniform Catholic dominance emerged only through centuries of political consolidation, military campaigns, and religious legislation. The result was a continent where law, trade, and diplomacy were shaped by a complex mix of faiths, not a single universal creed. Most torture devices associated with the Middle Ages were created centuries later. The Iron Maiden was assembled in the 19th century from earlier metal fragments for museum display. The elaborate torture chambers often linked to the Spanish Inquisition were largely 18th and 19th century inventions. The guillotine, often misattributed to the medieval period, was designed and adopted during the French Revolution in the late 18th century. In the actual Middle Ages, legal punishments varied by region but frequently involved fines, public humiliation, or short imprisonment. Devices like the stocks and pillory were common and relied on social exposure rather than severe injury. More extreme penalties, including flogging, mutilation, or execution, were generally reserved for serious crimes and were far less common than in later centuries. Some of the most brutal techniques, such as crucifixion, belong to the Roman era, not the medieval world. Legal codes in several kingdoms explicitly restricted the use of torture, and enforcement was inconsistent, making the constant brutality depicted in popular culture historically inaccurate. The Knights Templar were founded in 1119 to protect Christian pilgrims in the Holy Land. At their height, they operated hundreds of commanderies across Europe and employed tens of thousands of people. In 1307, King Philip IV of France ordered the arrest of Templar leaders, accusing them of heresy and blasphemy. Confessions obtained under torture were later recanted, and no credible evidence of corruption or criminal activity was produced. Philip's real motive was financial. He owed substantial debts to the order and sought their assets. Pope Clement V formally dissolved the Templars in 1312 under political pressure. Surviving members were absorbed into other military orders or retired quietly. Modern conspiracy theories linking the Templars to secret societies or global control began in the 20th century, fueled by books such as The Holy Blood and The Holy Grail and popularized by the Da Vinci Code. None of these claims have any foundation in documented medieval history. The claim that medieval people rarely lived beyond 30 is inaccurate. Average life expectancy figures are skewed by high infant mortality rates. Many children did not survive past the age of 5, pulling the statistical average down sharply. Records show that adults who reached their 20s often lived into their 50s or 60s, and some into their 70s or 80s. Nobility and wealthy merchants benefited from better diets, safer living conditions, and access to physicians, increasing their chances of long life. Archaeological studies of skeletal remains from cemeteries in England, France, and Italy confirm a significant number of elderly individuals. Major events such as the Black Death of the 14th century, which killed between 30% and 60% of Europe's population, temporarily reduced life expectancy figures but did not represent typical conditions. In stable periods, survival into old age was common for those who avoided disease, famine, and war.